Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and it seems like a lot of you guys liked the Shaman video, how it feels to play Shaman in current Shadowlands Alpha. So let's open this up to other classes and specs, and in this video we'll be taking a look at Hunters and the changes they're going through and the way they feel in at least dungeon content, but PvE content as well. How do Hunters feel in the current Shadowlands Alpha? We've taken a look at a lot of the changes that the Hunter specs have gotten, which really is not a lot. Hunters essentially are going to be more basic. They're losing traits and essences, but how will that gameplay affect them in terms of Shadowlands? Did they lose too much in order to be viable and fun, or is this loss not nearly as critical as some people think? We'll take a look at the specs that I'm very interested in the order of my interest, but we'll cover all three of them from Survival, Beast Mastery, as well as Marksmanship. We'll begin this video with Survival, and this spec has gone through a lot of ups and downs. I feel like last time Survival was in the stable position that quite a lot of people enjoyed playing it was maybe before Legion. Probably Warlord Destroyer is the last time that people played Survival Hunter with different types of ammo, being able to fire off serpent stings and black arrows and explosive shots. And ever since then, Blizzard been really trying to make a melee hunter work for the current version of WoW. In Legion, it was a rough attempt. However, in Battle for Azeroth, they got it to be a little bit closer. Still, the spec was pretty reliant on traits and all the other abilities, but the idea behind it was a little bit more real. Going into Shadowlands, Blizzard felt very confident in the talent traits and the setup that they had for Survival Hunter in terms of the basic gameplay, and they essentially stuck with it. The spec of Survival is supposed to be a melee class with a lot of hybrid capabilities through your talents, and it seems that Blizzard decided to go and buff certain talents that they obviously liked the idea of, but they were never strong enough to be a competitive choice. So essentially the changes that Blizzard made in the alpha so far for Survival is nothing new. In fact, they've just given them an ability with Killshot being a ranged ability, which again lets you get at a distance, not always having to stay in melee of the enemy, so you can throw this ability from afar. But where the biggest change that comes to Survival is now a lot of your talents are actually good. There's actually potential good builds that you can make with it. If all the talents are starting to get a lot closer to one another, there's a lot more variety of how you can approach different situations. As Survival, you always were a melee spec with range capabilities, but it never really felt like that because in Battle for Azeroth, you had to play Among Us Bite. No matter what you played, you had to play Among Us Bite because it was the only good option. And if you were playing BFA Survival for anything single target, you had to play those very long, overextended, coordinated assault windows, which essentially could last over a minute long with all the different essences. And during that burst window, you basically spam Mungus Bite and Kill Command. I guess you would throw grenades from time to time if you are a cap at 2 of them, but that's all you did. You have a dot, but you don't use it, so the spec just became so disjointed. There's so many cool playstyles of being able to cleave enemies when you put them together. Doesn't do enough damage, never worth it. What if you want to be kind of like an assassination rogue, sort of, kind of, just being able to dot up a bunch of enemies like you used to play Marksman or Survival back in the day, multi-shot to spread serpent sting on everybody. Yeah, it just doesn't do enough damage. Grab your grenade, Mungus Bite, get to spamming. And if you want just to be this janky hunter with a crossbow, shooting a bunch of those poisons at your enemies, getting your pets to sick them, and you always want to be that guy who drop a massive bear trap on your enemy's feet as it slams down on their toes. The enemy has a pretty rough bleed on them. Yeah, that ability was just never good, unless you were PvPing, and then it had some uses. So essentially for Survival, you just had a lot of dead talents that never really allowed you creativity for a build. It didn't help that certain traits and essences forced you to play certain playstyles that were kind of boring. I mean, it came down to just a 2-button playstyle at some point. And now you have this opportunity with all these talents buffed to hopefully make some builds. At least in the alpha, all these builds actually feel quite good. The biggest drawback for Survival right now is the focus regen, and it might be intentional. By having low amount of focus that you generate baseline, could be because of gear, which most likely it is because only 5% haste is what we're allowed on these alpha characters on the highest possible level, unless we do some quests to really try to juice up on that haste gear. Going for abilities that cost less focus in a talent row, or going for abilities that will do a better damage but most importantly generate focus, even gives you a little bit more of a unique but impactful choice on how you build your character. So maybe that was intended, maybe it was not, and maybe it had some unintended consequences. But just the idea of having finally the creative freedom to craft your own build for Survival Hunter is cool. It's actually a lot of fun to be able to approach every trash bag and try something new, see what works, see what fits. None of them seem all that bad. A lot of them seem kind of equal to one another, which might be what Blizzard is trying to achieve here in Shadowlands. Survival Hunter in Battle for Azeroth started out as a simplified version that was finally going to be accepted by the players, but as expansion went on, traits and essences muddied the waters, which made the spec feel really weird and awkward to play. It also had a very high haste cap needed for gear, and that's something Blizzard can go forward with the spec. Either make focus generation as part of a main mechanic and make players decide between talents where you need a lot of haste or between talents where you don't need a lot of haste. Is there a possibility to make a less haste reliant build that focuses on talents to regen focus but stacks more mastery, versatility, and critical strike for overall raw damage? Is there a possibility for that at all? I cannot say that I hate survival. I like the flurry of different talents that you can pick in order to craft fun builds, and the experimentation and finally being able to see the full potential of survival is what gets me excited. Some of you guys might be happy to know that Beast Mastery didn't change much. If you thought Beast Mastery was boring, there's a good chance you will still think so after this video. However, if you like your Beastmaster Hunter, you like the simplicity, you always enjoyed it, Beast Mastery stays simple. The only massive changes that are happening to Beastmaster are within talents, which actually give you a playstyle where you need to think about the way you want to approach each fight and situation, and can you make a build around those talents, which could be quite exciting. We are going to be losing a lot of crit coming out of Battle for Azeroth, so we are going to have our pet losing our stacks of frenzy from time to time. But what if you can control those stacks of frenzy, particularly during burst? There's a talent right now that's been reworked where Bestial Wrath gives you 2 stacks of Barb Shot, so you can maintain your pet's frenzy far easier. Since Barb Shot also reduces the cooldown of your Bestial Wrath as well, just a couple procs throughout a fight will almost allow you all the time to manage your pet and maintain its full damage capacity far easier. You did also lose a talent of Cobra, where you would normally summon a Cobra, it would spit at your enemy, disappear, and it did no damage. But they changed it, so now it's like a bit more active. The more Cobra shots you do while Bestial Wrath is active, the stronger the Cobra that you will summon at the end of that ability's run, which synergizes with some of the other talents to actually give you a playstyle where you're really having to think and plan for it ahead, where focus isn't just something you're just trying to dump at all times and keep on low. It's something you can plan for and have a bit of a sequence of fun gameplay. To buff your pet damage even further, at the bottom row they added a talent where your pet will put a bleed on an enemy. The bleed itself isn't powerful, but the extra damage your pet will do to that one target is. So that could be used to focus down specific targets for Beastmaster Hunter, further allowing you a little bit more focus on how you want to play with your pet. Now, these talents aren't going to change the playstyle of your Beast Mastery in drastic ways, but it is going to be something extra for you to do. And Blizzard is taking into account some of the changes coming out of Battle for Azeroth that Beastmaster will have. They also replaced some of the other dead talents nobody really ever plays in order to give you a little bit more of a choice in how you want to run. But the best part about a Beast Mastery is also the kill shot, because now you have an extra global to use that doesn't cause the most amount of focus that gives you quite a bit of damage. Beast Mastery is still a very strong, very reliant, fairly easy to pick up, which is not a bad thing whatsoever, of a spec. And personally, I actually kind of don't hate it. I can't say that it's my favorite and the most exciting spec ever, because I like specs with complexity, or specs that are generally undervalued or undertuned unless you play them in a very specific playstyles. But that's just my personal taste. This spec, however, is going to be something a lot of you guys will like and remember if you're someone who wants to play the Hunter right now in BFA and prepare for Shadowlands. Then we have Marksmanship Hunter, and Marksman does quite a bit of damage and is probably the one spec that feels the best right now when it comes to focus generation. Don't get me wrong, Marksman still doesn't feel nearly as good as it did for a lot of you guys back in Legion. I think majority of people like Marksman and Legion, maintaining buffs and debuffs and had some complexity but a very reactive gameplay. With Marksman of Battle for Azeroth, it became very predictable gameplay. Some like it, some don't. It is a simpler gameplay than before. But going forward right now, Marksman on the alpha has the best focus regen, and overall, you really cannot bust this spec too much for it. It is simple, it is weird, it still has a weird playstyle where during your true shot aura, you're ignoring your arcane shots. You have all these arrows on your screen telling you, hey, press arcane shot, it's gonna do a lot of damage, but because you're generating so many aim shots, you never pop arcane. So that's something that Blizzard maybe can fix in the future. A lot of people don't like that weird playstyle. It's like you're just ignoring buttons. They are there. You're supposed to press them but they don't do nothing because you have to ignore them because this ability or that ability is present. It makes me mad sometimes. It's almost like it's disjointed, almost like two different people working the spec. And even with all those issues, it still feels really good on the alpha. Some of the things that I like about it is baseline bonding shot to give it a little bit extra CC capability, which I think it really needed in PvP. Having to talent for bonding shot, not having a stun from your pet, feels weird, so Blizzard at least gave them a baseline toolkit to add to their collection. That route is actually quite good. You also have a variety of different talents to alter your gameplay in various ways. Going from double kill shot, which costs very much pennies for focus, you have the ability to choose which abilities you want to use for focus regen, giving you more options. Volley is super fun. Not only does it look awesome as you rain a barrage of arrows on your enemies, it also gives you ability to cleave 2 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets without always having to press multi-shot. So at least Blizzard is taking steps to make marksmanship better. I'm just saying, if you're completely against what Marksmanship Hunter does in Battle for Azeroth right now, there's probably a good chance you won't enjoy the Shadowlands Marksmanship Hunter unless Blizzard does more changes on the alpha, which is possible. But if you're someone who's willing to give the spec another spin, I think you will enjoy the change of playstyle. The talents I think are super fun and complement the spec much better. And overall, that might be enough to complete the fantasy of the Sniper Marksman Hunter. It's really hard to judge Hunter because without specific numbers to sim, to run through a recount, to apply to different fights and really test and have all this data to collect, we don't really know how effective it's going to be. And this is way too early in the alpha where Blizzard doesn't have any final numbers of what they want to do for any of the specs just yet. But in terms of the feel, the playstyle, the fantasy behind it all, it really feels fun, not gonna lie. It makes me feel kind of giddy just trying to play Hunter and seeing all these talents that were once bad for survival are actually kind of should be supposed to be good, at least in theory. Marksmanship feels pretty good in terms of focus regen. Some of the talents you have are super enjoyable. Beast Mastery is same old, never really been my cup of tea, but still feels like a spec that you can reliably fall back on in case none of these specs really pan out. The best way I would describe my feelings towards the Hunter is optimistic. I won't say anything much, I won't say and really praise it past that, just optimistic. It is a class that I'm planning on playing going forward. I feel there's a lot of hidden potential with survival. If all the talents are actually good, you could have so many new builds that you've never got to experience when playing in Battle for Azeroth. Builds that actually work and builds that actually do good damage for once. With marksmanship, it still feels the same marksman, and I really never hated it. It was hard for me to figure out the Legion side of Marksmanship Hunter, but the Battle for Azeroth simplified marksman, while boring for some, I actually found quite fitting. It was just fun being able to pelt enemies with arrows from afar, doing big crit damage numbers, but that's just been my playstyle. Beast Mastery never really been my cup of tea, but that spec didn't really change too much. And simplicity for one spec or another isn't a bad thing by default. A lot of specs are getting a lot more buttons and a lot more abilities, and you can have some really big brain plays with each spec as a lot of base abilities are returning. In Beastmaster Hunter, even though it has a simple base rotation, it still has complexity to grow forward. And maybe someone will figure out a build, maybe with future iterations of that Hunter, where you might have some crazy cool build that even I might be drawn into. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what your thoughts are on Hunter on the alpha. This isn't the final version of Hunter, and there's a good chance it'll change plenty between the alpha, the beta, and the release cycle of Shadowlands. So stay tuned on the channel if you want to see any updates. I'll be doing updates on just about every class and focusing on classes with Shadowlands, as I really want a lot of the specs and classes to be fun to play and overall feel good when it comes to picking them up. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.